And I am Amber Gunst. I'm the CEO of Austin Technology Council, and I'm very excited for all of you to be with us tonight. This is a new program that we started up, CEO Conversations, and it's really to give the opportunity for people to hear CEOs that are brilliant and funny and interesting and who like each other have a fantastic conversation. We would first like to thank our sponsors, Cooley and Deloitte, for supporting us with this and working with us on this. I hope everybody enjoyed the snow yesterday, and I hope everybody enjoys this conversation even more. I have a feeling, being from Michigan, that I'm going to like this conversation more than I liked the snow yesterday. So I am going to pass it over to Brett Hurt, who is the founder and CEO of Data.World, and Mark McClain, who is the co-founder and CEO of SailPoint. And more importantly, he was our board chair for a millennia and did an amazing job steering our community. So it's with my greatest pleasure to introduce both Brett and Mark and let them get this ball rolling. Enjoy the conversation, everyone. And oh, before I forget, this might run a few minutes over because these guys are hilarious and great. And if you've got questions, pop them in the Q&A and we will definitely get to as many questions as possible tonight. Now I'm done speaking, gentlemen.
All right, well, thank you very much, Amber, and thank you everybody for attending. I am very thrilled to be here with Mark. I consider him one of Austin's best CEOs and one that is obsessive about company culture, and that in fact is what his new book is all about. So it's a real pleasure to be on this with you, Mark.
Same, Brett. Yeah, I was laughing when Amber said hilarious and great. So just to clarify, Brett's great and I'm hilarious. Let's just kind of stick to type here.
Not true.
But no, we'll have a fun set of things to talk about. I know we've both seen a lot of experiences over the years. Austin has changed over that time, which is kind of part of the fun backdrop here. And yeah, of course, just to set us up for nothing is as it is expected. Why not have a snow day the day before this? Why not? Why wouldn't we?
Right.
It's just, why? Of course. It's just like everything else in life, a little unexpected lately, but
that was quite fun though. I made a snowman with my son and it looked really, really bad. My friends were like, hey, next one you should make should be straight out of Minecraft. And Deborah, my wife, of course, made one which looks like an artisan, snow woman. She's like Peruvian, beautiful. And it stood the test of time. I don't think the thing melted until like 4 p.m.
I'm trying to figure out where she had the time to develop good snowman / snow person, artistic
she grew up in Kansas City.
Oh, see, there it is. Because I'm like,
yeah.
If you're in Austin, you don't need to practice once every 5 years in Austin. It's not enough to get good, I don't think.
I know.
But how often I play golf.
It was a lot of fun though. We had a really great day as a family yesterday.
Well, and I'm a half generation ahead of you, Brett. So I got to get a lot of, pictures of my grandchildren making snow people with my kids while I was nice and warm in the house. So it worked out great. So everybody won. So, but
that's awesome.
I guess, Josh, we have plenty we could talk about. You've written some really cool stuff about the entrepreneur's journey. I managed to fake my way through a book. So we have things we've captured there in writing that we can talk about that it might be of interest to people. But where would you like to start? I'll let you fire off on one. I think this is just meant to be a conversation, so we can ask each other some questions as we go, I think.
Yeah, sure. I'm happy to start. So I'm going to start with something a little bit light, and then we'll get into some more heavy topics. But what do you personally miss, Mark, the most from pre-pandemic times? And then what do you miss the most from a work perspective?
So yeah, I guess if the first one was more personal, quote unquote, or just broader than work, I think on a personal level, I enjoyed going places. Some of that was work related. And then as my wife and I became empty nesters, she would get to tag along on those more of late, which has been fun. We have a company that has offices and presence around the world. So she got to go with me to Asia and Australia a year and a half ago and stuff like that. We haven't done any of that for quite some time, obviously.
Sure.
So I think just, traveling, we have actually traveled a little, Brett. You and I didn't get a chance to catch up on that. We've flown a couple of times here in the latter part of the pandemic, but in general, not much. and have done a little bit of local family connection and such. But yeah, just the freedom to go and be places and see some new stuff. I've definitely missed that. And on work, I'll tell you, Brett, for me, it's easy. You may be the same boat. I just miss being around the team. Like,
Yeah,
this
absolutely.
is a surrogate, as we know. It's kind of a next best. It sure as hell beats conference calls. I was talking to somebody the other day how much harder this would have been 20 years ago before readily available video.
Oh,
But
it would have been horrible.
right?
Video
Can you
conferencing
imagine?
was horrible even,
Right?
15 years ago.
It probably we would have given up on video and just done audio conferencing. And I'm thinking about all the things for the last year on only audio conferencing would have been awful. So yeah,
Yeah.
I miss seeing the team. We've had a little bit of times where we got together, a little subset of us outdoors safely, all those good things. But just, just being around the team day in, day
Yeah.
out.
Yeah.
I miss it. How about you? How would you answer
Yeah.
your own?
Same for me. I mean, gosh, I absolutely love getting together with the team to celebrate big milestones. We always did that at the Alamo Draft House and take over the theater. And we did the same thing at Bizarre Voice. I'm talking about Data.World is my current company, which is awesome. Just really, really fun company. But having said that, we've made the most of the medium that we have. One of the things that's been neat is that I've been able to get board members, investors, customers much more involved in being present in our meetings. So, instead of us being at the Alamo Draft House, where it would have been very awkward to have like a board member on the screen and all of us sitting in a theater, we're all boxes on a screen. And it's kind of this flattening effect of hierarchy and, access. And so they've been very active in pumping up our team, helping us celebrate key milestones, having the voice of the customer there, some of our largest customers joining and telling people how critical Data.World has become to their business during the pandemic. I mean, those are things that would have been awkward and not as easy to do before. So there is a give and take, but I can't wait to get together with the team again in person, give everybody a big hug, shake hands again. I'm in the shake hands again and give hugs again camp, following vaccines for sure.
We will be doing the awkward, does my fist meet your hand as you reach your hand?
Right, exactly.
We're going to be doing all that.
Forgotten how to do that. That's right. I'm going to need handshake lessons. Hey, that's a good business idea for anybody listening to this. There you go.
You got to do a really early signal, like come in really early. Here, look, my hand's open.
Right.
Here it comes, right?
Kind of the slow-mo Matrix style handshake.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, no, I think that's a big, just being around folks. It's funny, Brett, you're talking about I like your term flattening. Honestly, the most positive view of this, not shockingly in some ways, has been our international folks, because to your point, we had gotten into bad habits because they were just normal. So all of us, quote, meaning mostly the Austin leadership team, would be in a room with one or a couple of people either on the phone, maybe on a video, often just on the phone. And they've all commented how much better it is for them because they feel like they're on sort of equal footing with everybody in Austin, because everybody's all just a screen, as you said. So I think that I've sort of decreed a semi-rule that as we come back, I don't think it'll be a hard and fast, but like either we're kind of not all on the screen or we're all on the screen. Like this idea of imbalanced communication, it's really clear to me we were kind of messing that up for some of our remote and or international folks. And they were too nice to make a big deal of it. They just kind of put up with it because that's the way it was. I think we're all learning like that was not so great. So we'll try to fix it.
Yeah, that really gets to the point of, kind of how are we going to work following the pandemic? And as far as us, we're going to be very kind of thoughtful and really poll our people on how they want to work following it. But I think it's going to end up being a hybrid for us between work from home and in the office. And I think one of the challenges is going to be to get density in the office when we are working from the office. So I'm thinking that possibly it's going to be Mondays and Fridays in the office and Tuesdays through Thursdays work from home, but I don't know yet. And it's really going to depend a lot on what our people want to do and what our other leaders want to do and what people think will work less. And I think, we're going to stumble around and try to figure it out, just like we stumbled around at the beginning of this pandemic and try to figure out how to be really effective this way.
You sound better than me, Brett. I think I'm still stumbling around.
I actually think we've gotten much more efficient as a company during this period of time, but we're also only 83 people, so we're much smaller than SailPoint.
Well, and we could jump here now. You and I talked about this. We could jump here now or at some point. I think it's really interesting. You and I were reflecting on this. You know, back when you were at Bizarre Voice, our company SailPoint was just getting off the ground. So the 08, 09 crisis hits. You're a big going concern, trying to figure out how to navigate that. We're like just, you know, barely out of the ground, 30 people or something like that when that happened. Now you and I are almost in reversals here. This crisis hits, we're big and trying to figure out how to keep the team connected, blah, blah, blah. And you're like the small, newly formed, kind of still figuring it out team in a new crisis. So it's sort of like, how might we see those two? I mean, they're not exactly the same. I get it, right? The 08 kind of financial crisis and this last year, but just, you know, an external shock to the system. Maybe that's the common ground there, an external, nothing we did, right? External shock to the system. In one case, you got a small business barely going, trying to keep the team aligned and focused. In the other case, you got a very large global team. That was you last time, that's me this time, you know, and vice versa. So let's talk about maybe our experiences as a younger, you know, like smaller firm. For you, that was recently. For me, that was for the back. What did you think about how to keep that young, still forming team really tightly knit?
Well, so let me just start out by saying, I don't know if you would agree with this, but you know, I'm going to just be really candid about this. Both were incredibly terrifying for me, and at both stages. So I mean, at Bizarre Voice, it was terrifying because I didn't know if our whole country was about to go into a Great Depression and our customers were going to go away, and all this that we had worked for. And we really had a tiger by the tail, you know, beating our goals every quarter, you know, just on this amazing path. You know, we went from 0 to 100 million in sales in 6 years and had a great IPO. And I was absolutely terrified of what this meant. And so what we did at Bizarre Voice was we did a 6-month hiring freeze. And we just kind of did double duty. And we actually beat our goals that whole time. And if I knew we were going to beat our goals, of course I wouldn't have done a hiring freeze. But what it ended up doing is it made us much more resilient. We pulled together much tighter. I gave a lot of, you know, analogies to what our founding fathers went through and the difficulty of, you know, the origins of our country, and, you know, how we've got it so easy here in air-conditioned buildings with free snacks and yada, yada, yada. And we, you know, we grew stronger. We grew stronger. We realized we could do more with less. But boy, we turned that hiring spigot like right back up. At Data.World, it was scary because we were at the beginning of a fundraise. It turned out to be a $26 million fundraise, but we had only closed, and we weren't initially targeting 26 million, but so we beat our goals for that, but we had only closed around 8. And then the pandemic really hit. South by Southwest gets canceled. And I just thought, oh my gosh, you know, this could be the end of the company right as it's really, really taking off. And my wife, Deborah, who's seen me go through the .com crash and 9/11 with Core Metrics, and this, you know, this near Great Recession or Great Depression, it turned out to be a Great Recession with Bizarre Voice. And now this, she was like, relax, it's going to be fine. It'll probably be good for your business. And it turned out that she was right. It actually turned out to be a major accelerant for our customers. We had, you know, one of our Fortune 500 customers go from 12 users on Data.World to over 10,000 by the end of the year, because they needed to make so many data-driven decisions that it accelerated their usage of us. And then as investors saw that, it led to us beating our fundraising goal. And the last person to invest in our round was Jim Breyer, who, you know, moved recently to town and is one of the top 10 VCs as an individual in the world. I mean, Jim's track record's incredible. So it was a nice, you know, kind of icing on top to get him on board. He's been very helpful in the business, but it was terrifying. I mean, I wrote about it very transparently last week in this 5-part series on Urbanitis, which I consider to be the best cultural magazine in Austin. And in phase 1 of leadership during the pandemic, I talked about the fear. But I had that same fear at the beginning of the Great Recession, where I just thought this could be just calamitous for our company after everything we've worked for. So I don't think my personal opinion is, whether you're small or big, it's still terrifying. And I'm sure it's incredibly terrifying for, Tim over at the Alamo Draft House, or, Fortune 500 CEO that leads, Marriott, or, a company like that. I mean, it's just got to be gut wrenching, to everybody.
Yeah, I think the difference for me in the two scenarios was, like you said, at the beginning of the '08 crisis, it felt like everybody economically might be impacted. And so, like, we were the early enough stage, we got the famous Sequoia memo. If you're old, you know what I'm referring to, right? That this thing that got forwarded to us from 9 different sources saying, everybody thinks you should basically shut down and give up and go home. It's nuclear or whatever.
Time to pack it in.
Right. Yeah. Pack it in. I know you just got started with pack it in, and like you, a little further than you, we had just raised our last round like 7 months before. So we had plenty of capital to roll, but there was this like, oh no, you shouldn't hire anybody. And like you, kind of similar story, even though we were way smaller, we sort of said, hey, we're going to freeze hiring and try to make progress without adding people, which just stretched people. Right. We actually even got some pressure to do a cut from our board at the time, and we instead took a universal pay cut. We said we'd rather keep people and ask everybody to suffer a little bit, and then gave those people, by the way, so probably you may have done the same thing. We gave all those people that took a little bit of W-2 pay cut a little bit of extra stock. That was a way better thing for them in the long run, but none of us knew it at the time, right? So that turned out great. Whereas, like you said, when you're larger, I think it's you've got so much invested in it already. You've got all this momentum, and you have a panic, like you said, Brett. I remember feeling like, oh no, like, wait, we've just finally got some great momentum and a great team. What's going to happen? We were fortunate in this one because while the pandemic affected everybody equally, economically, there's been a wide variety of effects. You mentioned some of the consumer businesses. Man, I don't envy airlines and hotels and what they've been through, restaurants.
I mean, for no fault of their own, right?
None.
Nothing they did wrong. Yep.
But we were like a digital company that pretty quickly figured out we were actually probably going to benefit from this. And there's almost this weird survivor guilt thing going, like, I feel kind of bad, but we're actually doing great right now. It's like this weird, like, I really did have great sympathy for everybody that was really going through hard stuff. But yet at the same time, we had to convince our board for a little bit. It was very quick to do this, but like, hey guys, we actually need to lean in. The last thing we need to do is pull back. We need to lean in right now.
Yeah. And so we got to the point where we were thinking about PPP because we just didn't know, right? It wasn't yet clear. And boy, I'm glad we didn't make that decision. I mean, we just didn't feel like ethically it'd be the right decision. Yeah. Because of all the small businesses that really were very clearly impacted. But it was debatable because it was at a time where if we had taken it, you could have argued you don't know which way it's going to go. But I'm so glad we didn't take that money, and I'm so glad. Well, we didn't even apply for it. But we had. I remember that board meeting really well, just as a sign of the times. Yeah. So hey, to get into something more culture and leadership oriented. You and I just love all things in that area, and it's frankly like a huge part of the reason why I think we're both in the arena right now, doing what we do. But I know that you're awesome in this area because you really, really care about it. And I remember having this conversation with John Mackey back in the earlier days of Bazaar Voice, where he said, I know you're always going to have a great culture at Bazaar Voice because you deeply care about the culture. And, your book, just to give it a plug, which is an awesome book, is called Joy and Success at Work, Building Organizations That Don't Suck, in parentheses, the life out of people. And, the market is clearly voting on your success. I mean, it's amazing. Like your company now has over $5 billion market cap, which is amazing. That's like pretty historic for Austin. And, it's got a make all of you feel awesome. And I'm sure, I know you're humble, so I know that you don't take that for granted at all. I know it's been hard earned, but what are the ways that you've really been able to keep up the joy in this remote environment? Because it is different, right? It's harder to read people. You're not, have you done it? What are the best tips you can give people here on keeping up the joy, or maybe even enhancing the joy?
Boy, it's a great way to frame it. I've answered a lot of questions of how do you maintain or even adapt your culture in this context. But how do you keep up the joy? That's a slightly different angle. And since I put the title in the book, including joy, I'm theoretically an expert on joy. Who knew I was an expert on joy? Who knew? No, I think Brett, it's partly, and this comes through in a lot of the stuff you've written too, right? So much of what happens in a company, certainly a young early stage company, but I've learned interestingly how much it continues to be super important as a leader of a larger organization now. The intent, the attitude you convey is incredibly critical. And the intent of where you spend your time and energy signals a lot to people. Let me just popped into my head as an example that I think kind of gets at both sides, so to speak, of the question, like kind of cultural stuff as well as maintaining joy. I've always kind of made this a priority. We got away from it a little as we were in a higher growth a few years ago. But during the pandemic, we've actually hired a few hundreds of people, right? And so every 2 weeks, I think, is our cadence. There's 15 to 20 on a Zoom call. It's a new hire orientation session, right? I do a 45-minute talk on every single one of those. I haven't missed one this year, on our values, not our products, not our market, not our history. I used to do a little bit on here's how we got here. And I'm like, you know what? They can look all that stuff up later. I want them to hear kind of what our values are and why we chose those values and how we live and reinforce those values. Because to your point, I sort of get one chance at the beginning of their tenure to set a tone of, hey, this is kind of what we really care about here. I want you to hear it from me so you kind of really get the full nuance. And this has been a twist I've added recently, is that part of what I'm doing by saying these things to them is to say, now you are responsible for holding us accountable to these values. So
that's beautiful.
If you're out there day to day living and go, hey, that wasn't really a high integrity thing I just saw in my group, you should feel a joke, deputy dog, you should feel deputized to go say, hey, I actually heard Mark give this talk like last week, and he said delivering on our commitments is a really big part of who we are. I don't think we're doing that here. So like be part of the enforcement. Enforcement sounds negative, but just like the encouragement to stay true to these things. And so I think that's part of what's helped people feel so still connected, is they hear that they're sort of out there kind of, now joining all kinds of groups all over. And I've heard that from our older folks, like, hey, the new guy just said, he really enjoyed your talk. And he asked me about how we're doing this or that, it's like they're sort of like a fresh injection into the company of reinforcing the culture. And I really didn't have that. I wasn't that smart. I didn't think of that in advance, that that's what they were kind of doing in this crazy remote thing, but it's really true. They're like re-energizing the culture almost because they're trying so hard, because it's so hard to be remote,
Right.
It's a weird thing.
They also have more access, this kind of flattening concept. And I kind of say flattening from, the world is flat. That's what I mean by Thomas Friedman. And, I absolutely love that. And I do the same thing. We've grown by almost 50% in terms of team members during this time. And I kind of joke around sometimes when I'm in the mood where I say, I have no idea if people are, 7 feet tall or 4 feet tall, but I have the same meeting that you have, where I follow through on our culture, or talk about our operating principles and our values and how we derive those and why we're B Corporation, a public benefit corporation. But one of the things that I do as well, which maybe you could take as a suggestion, or maybe you already do this, is I also say, hey, you have completely fresh eyes coming in here. please, please, please tell me the best, aspect of the culture you've ever seen at any prior company, because, we're 83 people and your fingerprints are going to be all over this. And, the culture we establish now is going to be the culture that we have at, 200, 500, 1,000 people. So please say what those ideas are early, infuse them here. We are all ears. But I also say the same thing you say, tell us if we're going astray. I really care. We're doing this all together. But just that personableness and that connection. I mean, I know you love your people, and I really love our people too. I love the journey we're on together. We're on this big kind of quest, together.
Well,
And
that's I quote Lencioni a lot on the humility thing. I liked your 7 lessons in the chapter out of your online book about, lessons of an entrepreneur. And the 7th, I believe, right, was the kind of vulnerability. And this is part of what you're talking about, right? Like you say to the new person, hi, I'm the boss, but I want you to know I don't know it all. And so if you can bring me a new idea, it's a welcome idea. And some people are they're shocked by that. Like, wait. You care what I think, and I'm, the new little 23-year-old engineer who just joined out of college. I'm like, yeah, you might have a great idea that nobody's ever had here before, right?
Yeah, sometimes they have the best ideas because they come in the most fresh, and yeah, absolutely. Everybody's voice. You want to hear everybody's voice to get the best ideas out there, and to debate, what kind of company you want to be when you grow up, and as successful as SailPoint is, you could be a 50 billion market cap company one day and still growing up. So
I want to believe you're right.
I hope so.
Yeah, no, it's fun. Well, hey, I saw a couple things here. We'll try to be responsive to our audience.
Okay, sure.
I saw a couple things that came in. Larry, our buddy Larry out there. Hi, Larry. Warnock. Oh, wait, where'd it go? Said something about, hey, what do we think about some of the new arrivals in Austin? I know you've been pretty tuned into a lot of that, new venture firms or existing firms showing up at Tesla, Apple, Oracle's headquarters. Man, that's one of the weirdest ones. Like, is this good for Austin? Is this good for our tech community? Bad? Some of both? What's your take on some of that?
I think it's amazingly good for us. I think that it's the tipping point that Austin has always kind of been working towards. I say, bring them in, like let's embrace, some of their ideas, the best of their ideas. One of the things that people don't get about Austin, I was born and raised here, and every 10 years since I was born, since 1972, I hear people say how the old Austin is gone and it's all over. I've heard that ever since I was a little kid. And in my opinion, it's always gotten better if you look at it objectively. And so, these are really, powerful figures coming to town with big ideas, and they're moving here for a reason. And it's not just taxes. There's a lot of places they could move if it was just about taxes. They're moving here because they like the authenticity of Austin. They like the diversity of our people and our political, views here. They want a society where ultimately they can help shape it. And it's super exciting. And, I'll admit something, you talked about vulnerability. I'm going to tell you something that I was just a total idiot on. Okay. When I was CEO of Bazaar Boys, the chamber would come down pretty regularly to meet with me. And the chamber had this big initiative to get people to move or open up an additional office here, like Google, Facebook, et cetera, bring the jobs. And I said, hey, that's fine, but you're much better off focused on getting whole companies to move here, because I don't want Austin to become kind of the India of Silicon Valley, where it's just like we're the office that could easily be shut down. And I was proven right when Google, you may remember, initially shut down their Austin office. They stole my CTO, bizarre voice, Paul Rogers, who's an amazing guy, not bitter about it at all. He was just unbelievable. He later became the CTO of Retail Me Not, a little bit bitter. And they made him the head of Google's Austin office to open it. And then they shut it down. And Paul ended up, commuting to Pittsburgh to be the head of the Pittsburgh office. And all those people either moved to Pittsburgh or but Larry and Sergey just unilaterally decided they'd expanded too quickly. And, Austin wasn't the place they want to be. Now they reversed that decision in about a year. But now, you've got Oracle moving headquarters here. You've got Facebook, massive office here. You've got Google, massive office here. You've got Apple, second largest office in the world, for here. And I think this is phenomenal from an entrepreneurial perspective, because those people that go work there, some of them are eventually going to want to start their own companies or go work for startups. Mm-hmm. And we're going to benefit from that in the entrepreneurial ecosystem incredibly. And then you have the capital moving here, Jim Breyer, Joe Lonsdale, Danny Kubetsky. A lot of people don't know who that is, but he's the founder of Kind Bar, and he moved here. He's a billionaire, a real conscious capitalist, like really cares about culture. You can listen to him on Reid Hoffman's podcast, Masters of Scale. That's a great episode. But he's here in Austin now too. And there's all these people in Austin that I meet with them pretty early on, because Deborah and I now are in 98 startups as investors, and most of them are in Austin. And so we're in Everlywell and Aceable and Alert Media and a bunch of the best startups in town. So they want to get kind of plugged into our deal flow, and I get to meet them pretty early on, and I am thrilled that they're moving here. And I think they're doing it in a kind of an ostentatious way. They're not coming in to kind of trample on what we are. They like what we are. They're coming in with their own ideas to say, hey, maybe this will make it even better. And one of the things that I love about Austin is this tension between kind of the creative and the artist type and the capitalist type. And that tension produces better outcomes. And that's what people don't get when they say every 10 years, oh, the old Austin is dead. That tension produces, beauty and diversity and a lot of really cool things here that you just don't find in Dallas or Houston or the other Texas cities, because we have that tension. Dallas doesn't have that tension. The capitalists won, game over. That's it. Capitalists won. But we have that tension. So I love it, and they know we have that tension. They're not idiots. They're moving here for a reason.
Well, and I didn't spend a ton of time. I'm a Southern California native, and I spent about 3 or 4 years in the Valley before I moved here in the 90s. So I got here a little later than you, but by Austin standards, I'm an old timer now, 25 years here. And, what I always said to people, and I think it's still true, and man, this is the thing I do want to hold on to, is in the Valley, it always kind of felt like people might take a meeting with you if they knew you through some connection, but there was almost like a suspicion, like, why should I meet with you? And kind of a little bit of what's in it for me if I meet with you. And one of the things I felt like was true when I got here, and I've certainly tried to pay it forward, I know you do a ton, is just like this openness to connect with almost anyone and everyone. Like, sure, I can meet with you, or I can introduce you to someone if I know them. You do a little bit of sanity check. Is this person that's not a complete waste of time kind of thing? But, there's a sense of a real openness and a real willingness to connect to better the whole ecosystem and community. And I think we have a big advantage. I don't like the comparisons to the Valley. I think the Valley is kind of a unique thing, but on the other hand, it's an advantage we have over the Valley, is that approach. So yeah, one of my hopes is we infect the people coming here with that, as opposed to they kind of bring some of that value, which I don't think is as great coming from the coast. I don't know if that's something you see.
I agree with you. And they're coming here knowing that we have those values. So they are self-identifying that they have those values too by making a decision to move here. Again, it's not only about taxes. That's not it at all.
Yeah, right.
And I mean, when some of these people moving here, as wealthy as they are, how can it be about taxes? They've already made enough money where they're never. I mean, and many of them have already pledged that they're going to give away 99% of their wealth in their lifetime, as it is. But one thing that what you said just reminds me of is I was on a panel like 20 years ago with Amy of Amy's Ice Cream. And she was telling the story of why she moved here. And she moved from Boston. So she worked at an ice cream shop in Boston that was kind of like, the same kind of bespoke ice cream. And she went to go visit 4 other cities after doing a lot of demographic analysis about growth patterns and age and things like that would be good for kind of an ice cream shop of her own. And the reason she chose Austin, it was the only place that she visited where people just opened up their books. They said, here's how much we pay people. Here's what our margins are. She said, people are just so open kimono and so loving and, helpful that she thought, that's it. That's the city. I want to be with those people. And, when Deborah and I lived in Silicon Valley, we lived in San Francisco from 2000 to 2003. And the number one reason that we moved back was that we wanted to raise our kids here because of those values, and that was not an easy decision that we made at the time, because my career was as an entrepreneur was phenomenal in Silicon Valley.
Yeah.
But that if I never made that move, I don't know if I would have started Bizarre Voice, because it started shortly after moving back.
No, it's just, I think you sort of either gravitate, well, it's an aspect of the Austin weird thing, right? I think you either gravitate to that or you don't. But I think ideally we keep magnetically pulling people who want to be that way and continue the company or just the whole business culture here, I think, around that.
Yeah. Yeah.
What
else do we have there in the Q&A?
Well, I saw one from Scott. Hi, Scott, out there. I thought this was interesting, Brett. Have either of you had to really rethink the way we fulfill customers due to COVID or other operating process? Or is it just about interpersonal, i.e. Zoom? How do you think about kind of what's changed? Maybe we'll just kind of broaden that a little to just the customer dynamic in this context. What's different? What's the same? What have we learned? How about that topic?
Well, I think so the interesting thing about this experiment that we've been on to, bend the curve and protect ourselves, our families, our team members, their families, et cetera, is that it's been a forced experiment on everybody at the same time. Like if someone had come to you, Mark, and said in March of last year, said, hey, Mark, I have a bet for you. You're Mr. Culture guy. Why don't you send everybody from SailPoint home around the world and, wake up in December and tell me, not wake up, obviously you lead the company, but tell me how it went in December. If you're brave enough, to change culture, why don't you try that? And I would have said no to them personally. I would have said, you're out of your mind. I'm not going to do that. I wouldn't have been open to it. Because I had become a successful entrepreneur by us being together in person. That was also part of my fear back in March, is now I'm part of this experiment, and we'll see how it goes. But the thing that you have to keep in mind about the experiment is your customers were undergoing the same experiment for the most part. And so in our case, it actually increased the access dramatically. It made us able to get a hold of key people within our customers easier, not harder. Now, it made selling harder because all of our conferences went away, which was the primary source of our lead gen the year before, right, in 2019.
Yep, us too.
We still beat our goals, including our lead gen goals, but we had to get really creative. And the secret, if there is one, is that we created our own virtual events, and we did a really good job of that and got tons of attendees, in some cases more than would have come to the conferences.
Yeah.
And so we got really good at that. And that was the team. I mean, when we beat our Q1 goal our Q1 started in February. When we beat it in April of last year, I literally broke down crying because it was the last day of the quarter. And here we are in this experiment. And I just thought, I'm just so lucky to work with this team. And it just made me really emotional to think about what we had just been through, and that yet we had still beaten our goal, and we set our goal based on a beat of the previous year. So we just set our fiscal year goal. So it's increased the access level, and it's, it has adapted our customer success playbook One of the things that we have that's really unique here, and I would encourage anybody to think about, is we have a shared bonus goal that everybody in the company shares in. It's 20% of everybody's compensation, and 50% of our goal is based on customer adoption. And we have a very deep measure of customer adoption because we're an online platform. When we see that either going well or going astray, there's all these different interventions that we inject to get to the right people if it's going poorly, or get to the right people if it's going really well. It's really made the access level go way up. So, you have to remember that they've been undergoing the same experiment that you have been. Now, if it was just us from home, right, and they were in the office, I think as the small company serving Fortune 500s, they would be like, get your ass in here. Yeah. Like, what are you guys doing? We're not going to pay you this. And, you guys all work from home. I just don't think they would have looked too kindly on that. But they're undergoing the same experiment.
Yeah. Two observations come to my mind on this train of thought. One is, I've joked a lot about how, there's been a blurring of the personal and professional line for 30 years, right? Once we all got remote technology, and I joke with people, when I started, I used to carry something called a briefcase. Maybe you've heard of one.
Oh yeah. I did that for a little while too.
Right? And because there was no laptop or PC at home, there was no cell phone, there was nothing to do but read things. So you would take things home to read. Because by the way, people also didn't call you at home at night because that was kind of rude unless there was an emergency. That was your home, right? There's this big wall kind of between personal and professional in the 80s. I'm old when I started. And so that line's got blurred. I've told people, like, nothing has blurred it more than the naked 7-year-old, running behind you on a Zoom call.
I love that.
But that doesn't happen just with our own people. It happens with customers. So part of what's happened is just like the human connection has actually gone up, I think, with a lot of customers, because we're all just kind of living this, like you said, I love how you point that out. We're all living a shared experiment. It's not like just us or them, all of us. But we're also getting this weird kind of crashing together of personal and professional, because that's just reality. You got cats and dogs and family members around, and you're trying to do work, and it just kind of bumps into each other a lot, right? And so that's one thing. Customers, I think, when you recognize and remind each other that we're all just people trying to get through this weird global experience together, that's been one thing. I think the other thing, Brett, that I think about is, and we kind of touched on this earlier about our own teams. Like, I draw the swinging pendulum. I'm like, look, all I know is about a whole bunch of stuff. We used to be over here, and we swung way over here, and we're going to come back somewhere in the middle. I don't know exactly where, but travel, business, a whole bunch of things, right? But I think just like we're not quite sure where we or some of our people are going to land, we're not sure where a lot of our customers are going to land either. So some of them may go, just keep doing the remote thing with me. It's easier. I like it. I don't want to meet in the office either. And I think some of them, like some of our folks, are like, God, as soon as you can get out here, let's have a meeting and a dinner, right? Like, I'm dying for social interaction.
Right.
So I think we're going to have to kind of read the customers and even the prospects as we're working on new ones, right? Just like we have to kind of read our own people. People are going to be all over this spectrum, right?
They are. Right? I think, I'm very optimistic on this point, because I think we're going to have the best of both worlds. I think we're going to have the best of the efficiency and effectiveness that remote can drive with the best of in-personness. For example, 75% of our people have said that working this way has made them either far more efficient, or as efficient. 25% have said that it's made them not as efficient. Okay. Out of that 20, right. Out of that 25%, guess what they have in common? They have young kids. Okay. And these young kids can't go to school right now, or they're choosing not to try to help bend the curve.
Yeah.
And think about life after that, where they've got the benefit of being hyper focused, no commute, et cetera, et cetera. I mean, definitely Data.World's getting a better ROI out of me personally. I mean, I'm working way, way more hours and way more efficiently than I was before. I mean, people say there's this Zoom fatigue. I think part of it is just the fact that you're context switching constantly. You don't have the mental break of the airplane flight, for example, which was a forced
No, you
break.
don't even have the 2-minute walk down the hall you used to have.
Exactly.
Kind of
Right.
reset, right?
It's just a constant kind of full on, et cetera. But
Yeah.
but then you do have the benefit of being able to integrate more of family life into it, and it takes a lot of willpower to do that without blurring the lines to the point where you lose family life. I mean, it's hard. You've got to develop new skills.
Yeah.
But I think we're going to have the best of both worlds. The being able to work from home, quite a bit of the time, but then be like, hey, let's go grab dinner. It's been a long time.
Yeah.
How nice would that be? Right?
I'm not a big fan. I know some of the West Coast firms have kind of almost implied, oh, we'll just stay home and work forever. I'm like, you're missing that, right? That we're human.
They're not going to do that forever.
Oh,
They're not going to do that. Like, I was shocked. Honestly, I personally was shocked when the tech giants, said, hey, don't worry, nobody's coming back to the office until the end of 2021. They said that like mid of last year. Right. I'm like, what are you doing? You're cutting off all your optionality, and you don't even know when vaccines are going to be here. Like, why would you make such a dramatic announcement? Like why not have some optionality? Maybe people don't want that, but anyways, I won't get on my soapbox about this. There's a lot of other great questions in here.
Yes, sir. Say, yeah, there's one there. I know Ian, he's actually part of our team out there, but it's a good one. Have you found it challenging to hire top talent since you can't interact with them in person? What have you changed in the remote interview process? I think that's a good one, because we've all talked about one of the key criteria for hiring was always, I want to sit down and look you in the eye. And does this count as looking you in the eye? Kind of, sort of, How have you guys thought about talent acquisition, and what process of changes, if any, have you guys made in this?
Well, I'll keep this short. So for us, it hasn't been a problem at all. Is the short answer to that. And chapter 11 of my book, The Entrepreneur's Essentials, which is available for free online at Medium. I gave it away for free because I was highly influenced by the Bootstrapper's Bible and the Clue Train Manifesto and other books that were given away for free online. So I always thought that's what I would do. And that chapter covers exactly how we hired at Bizarre Voice and exactly how we hire at Data.World. And we do exactly the same thing. So we rely very heavily on the test that's described in that chapter to really make our final decisions. And it works just as well via Zoom as it does in person. And we've added some of the most amazing people. I mean, really will be the future leaders of our company during this time. It's been unbelievable. It's also opened the aperture. It's busted a myth that I had, which is my myth was, or belief, I don't know what you call it, was that everybody must be in Austin while we're small and creating that core nucleus of a culture. And while we still primarily do that, because we're mindful of the fact that we are going to get back together in person at some point post-vaccines, actually probably the day after we all take vaccines, we are going to have to fly people in if we hire them from a remote location for the quarterly meetings and things of that nature. But it's really opened up the aperture. And so some of the best people we've hired don't live in Austin and have no intention of moving to Austin. And I was much more closed-minded on that prior to the pandemic. So it's really opened the aperture. And that's another one I was wrong on, I'm sure. But wrong pre-pandemic and saw the light during the pandemic.
I share your wrongness. I felt the same way. And I still think, at the very early, sub 15 people, that's probably harder to do. Truly, truly early stage might be harder to do the mix. But I'll tell you, I give all the credit to Abby, our chief people officer, and some of our team on this. Kind of a fascinating little juxtaposition we found that was useful. And I've found some others found this was helpful. So the remote work, like you said, Brett, kind of opened us up to thinking, maybe a lot of key people don't have to be here. Well, the thing that nicely overlapped with was the diversity challenge. Like all of a sudden we went, if we don't have to have people here, then we can start opening up our recruiting funnels to people in places where there's a more diverse pool, frankly,
Mhm.
and not say, hey, you're a great candidate, but I need you to come to Austin, when they might have their home base somewhere and they don't really want to move, but they love the company or like the company and thought of it. So the diversity meets remote has been a really strong silver lining here. Like, oh wow, as I open my mind up, as you said, to more, geographic diversity, I'll call it geographic diversity, I'm gonna get other forms of diversity just naturally because I got a way bigger pool than the Austin labor market, right? And so we're actually getting excited about some of the
That's a
diversity
great
of
point.
candidates because we're just open to remote. Like you said, we just weren't as open to it. We had certain jobs that were, designated, right? Field facing, customer facing. And even today we said, look, we're kind of location agnostic, except if you're hired to cover Southern California, we don't want you to live in New York, right? I mean, we're not going to be stupid about it. But yeah, if you're not a salesperson who ultimately we think will get back to some level of person interaction, like you and I were talking when we get out of this.
Yeah,
It's
that's a
been
really good point.
Yeah,
Actually, we've become much more diverse during the pandemic. We're now 54% minorities or female.
wow.
During the pandemic, that happened. We probably went from around 35% to around well, now we're 54%.
Wow, that's a great number.
Yeah.
Wow.
But that happened during the pandemic.
Yeah. No,
I wrote an open letter to tech leaders on the importance of diversity, and that's something everybody should read and really consider. But it's awesome that you've been able to do that and get more focus.
And to be fair, we're early on in it. It's just the thought process almost like, oh wow, this is a really great kind of positive secondary effect.
Right.
Of the openness, like you said, I was kind of generally not really loving the idea of critical players not being based here, and if they weren't, we kind of said, well, okay, but you got to travel here like all the time.
Right.
And now it's like, no, you got to be here some. Oh, and that's another twist. Where do you think? And I have some opinions on this, so I'll ask you before I pop off. Where do you think it's still critical to have in person when we can? What's going to hit that criteria for you?
Definitely the big company celebrations, the quarterly meetings, where we do the big quarterly kickoff. We celebrate what went right that quarter. We talk about what the big plans are for the next quarter. We will definitely be going back to Alamo Drafthouse doing that. I remember it was a very sad day in Bizarre Voices history where we outgrew the biggest Alamo theater in Austin. And we're like, oh, we can't do that anymore. But then we migrated to the Austin City Limits Theater. And that was also a pretty cool place to do it. But those are super, super important to do in person. And I just can't wait. And then, it's not just about the content and the interaction, but it's also about the fun activities that you could do around an event like that. And we will definitely be flying people in for that.
Yeah.
But outside of that, there's not going to be a lot. I mean, there will be customer meetings for sure that come back that need to be on site, that the customers are back on site to some extent. And it's a 50-person meeting or some big training session. They really want us there in person. Great. We'll enjoy doing that. I miss business travel, actually.
Yes.
There's an aspect of it that I miss. I mean, I don't miss everything about it, but there's some of it.
Some of it. Yeah. The only thing I'd add to your list, and this is based on our experience, maybe it's us, but with lack of a better term, the quarterly strategic offsite. Almost all leadership teams do some flavor of a quarterly offsite, right? Man, I'd say in the early stage of COVID, I guess we tried to do the first one of those over Zoom. And I have developed a pretty strong view, like Zoom is incredibly effective for a lot of things. It is not effective for like kind of deep, very interactive brain work. It's just, there are some tools, whiteboarding on the screen, blah, 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 all this stuff. It's like, man, when I'm in a kind of the inner circle leadership team, less than 10 people, we're there for a day or a day and a half. We want to brainstorm our markets and the competition and our culture, like, broad, deep discussion. I tell you, that's the one we concluded had to be together. So twice now we've done those, once outside and once in a way bigger room than we need for the size of group. But so we have distance, just because we said that's got to go back to interactive real time. That's the only other one I'd add to your list. I get the celebratory stuff, key customer things. Those are two of mine as well. Our experience was the deep strategic work, trying to do that over a Zoom thing. Man, that just did not fly, at least for us.
Yeah. Yeah, that's been okay for us. I mean, I can see for some meetings that'd be really important. Like I said, we're going to be a hybrid anyways, and so we'll end up doing, you know, some of those types of meetings when we're together, but I don't think it's going to be a must on that for us, because we've made tons of strategic decisions during this time. I mean, we're in that earlier stage where, you know, you're in the PT speedboat, you know, the analogy.
Exactly. Yeah. Back to where we are in our stages. You're a much smaller boat today. I was your small boat in the last crisis. You know,
right,
moving,
exactly.
very adaptive. Now it's like
pretty nimble. Like,
yeah, we're a little.
We had something happen during the pandemic where customers literally pulled a new solution out of us, and it's going to be a whole huge line of business for us. And that happened during the pandemic, and without any in-person meetings.
Yeah, for sure. Well, I think I said we hit a bunch of the questions. Hit some stuff on culture and kind of getting. How do you, Brett? You touched on it. Kind of, you know, the famous work-life balance question, and then Amber, you can interrupt us if you need to. Like you talked about that you're working hard. I think a lot of us are. We're putting in a lot of hours because there's little time for else. So might as well just do more Zoom calls. How are you kind of still, you know, factoring in a healthy lifestyle, work balance, you know, health, family? How are you doing some of that?
Like how am I personally, or how? Let me approach
you and maybe helping your team.
The company, yeah. So the company's been phenomenal on this. There's a mental wellness pod. These are pods in Slack. So, you know, a lot of people do work together on that. There's a fitness pod. People are all the time launching fitness challenges. There's right now a 30-day yoga challenge going on. So people have been really good in pulling together and just forming interest groups and, you know, really using that time well. For me personally, it's been great. I mean, I work out, you know, 6 days a week, and I just kind of integrated. I usually work out around 5:30 or 6. I actually worked out right before this. Finished
5:30, 6 in the evening. I thought you went in the morning.
No, 5 or 6 in the evening. I do, and you know, and then I get lots of walks in, because some meetings, it's okay, you know, it's more of a listening meeting and not even a dated-out world meeting, like something where I'm listening to some expert talk about a topic, and that's where I'll get a walk in. So I'm personally in better shape than I've been in over 20 years, and that's because of the pandemic. And you know, it's also not as fun to drink, because drinking for me is a social activity. So I want to be around people and have fun with people when we drink, and you know, kind of get some laughs out. And so I do a lot less drinking too. But I will be drinking again when we get back together in person. Just to be clear,
right after this, actually.
I'm not anti-drinking, but
hey, I'll flip it to you, Amber, on this one. But here's a great, Greg, you probably saw this. One of my all-time. There's been a bazillion awesome memes during the pandemic. My favorite was, be careful how you spend your time during the pandemic, because you can choose whether you end up as a chunk, a hunk, or a drunk. You can either eat too much, drink too much, or get in better shape.
I wonder if you could be all three of those.
And I said, that's my answer exactly. I'm like, I've actually had a little of all three at various times. A little too much of nope. Oh, look, I'm getting in better shape.
Jay says he's 2 out of 3.
There you go. Thank you, Jay.
I'm not going to ask him which 2.
Thank you, Brett. And thank you, Mark, for being part of our very first CEO conversation. This was even more fun and more interesting, and I learned more than I was planning to, and I'd helped you guys prep for this beforehand weeks ago. So we would also like, again, to thank our sponsors, Cooley and Deloitte, for helping us bring this program together. We will be back in February with another CEO conversation. We will get information and announcements out about that very soon. We'd like to thank you all for joining us tonight and coming in with these great questions. We look forward to seeing you all in person, as Brett said, after the vaccines. Everyone have a wonderful night. Thank you.
Thanks, everybody. Thanks, Amber. Thanks for being such a great host and
that was a lot of fun
to do this. And Mark, congrats on everything. Thanks,
Brett. Same
very
to
impressed with everything you do.
Well, you too, man. Carry on.
Thank you.
All right, you guys. See ya.
Thanks, everybody. Have a great evening.
Bye now.